Welcome back, everyone. Next up, we have ACME Lithium Inc. It trades on the OTCQX under the symbol ACLHF and on the CSE under the symbol ACME, and is a mineral exploration company focused on acquiring, exploring, and developing battery metal projects in partnership with leading technology and commodity companies. Please welcome its CEO, Steve Hanson. Welcome back, Steve. How you doing?
Hi, Anna. Great to see you today. Thanks for having me back.
Yes, and congratulations on your recent upgrade to the OTCQX.
Thank you. We're very excited about this. Happened last week. So again, another milestone for the company.
Wonderful. Well, the floor is yours. Take it away.
Great. Thanks, Anna. Again, a pleasure to be here today. My name is Steve Hanson. I'm the president and CEO of ACME Lithium, and I'm also the founder. So I've been in the resource sector for almost 30 years. I've worked on all 4 continents around the world in some very exotic places. I've been working in the field of mining and alternative energy and oil and gas. I've been CEO of a number of companies. I've been on boards and I've been an advisor of boards. But really my DNA is about it as an investor. I've invested in 200 to 300 projects over the course of my career. And I'm really proud of what we've accomplished in a very short period of time with ACME Lithium. So I'm going to share today what's gone on the last year or two, and then what's upcoming. It's a really exciting period for our company in what is an exploding market. So really, there's sort of 3 themes here that I've built our company on, and that we're in the right market right now. Lithium demand is exploding. In fact, it's become a crisis in the domestic market in the United States and Canada. We do not have enough lithium to supply our industry. I've put together what is a world-class group of projects. This portfolio is probably one of the best portfolio of lithium projects in the United States and Canada. So we've got the right address where we're hoping, obviously, to develop ultimately a resource for domestic supply. And then I've assembled a team of the right people. I have people experts in their field who have worked again on 4 continents around the world, primarily in Canada, the United States, that can help de-risk our projects and grow them over time. So we take lithium for granted. It's this soft, lightweight metal, and it's really changing the world. And the lithium battery market is absolutely massive. It's hundreds of billions of dollars expected over the next decade in growth, and it's used every day. When we talk about lithium, it's in our cell phones, in our tablets, in our power tools, our laptops, and most notably now in our hybrid vehicles and electric vehicles. It's also used in battery grid storage. So it's widely used by everyone around the globe. Again, this lightweight metal is found in rocks, it's found in clay, and it's found in brine, which is salt water in underground pools. And so that's where lithium is extracted from. And again, we're seeing massive growth in a number of areas around the world. And that's why lithium as a commodity is the most important commodity today. And we do take it for granted. There is not enough of it. There's not enough in production. And unfortunately, Canada and the US are far behind in finding and developing lithium projects. So a few themes here that I'm following. Number of investment banks have said we're in a perpetual deficit. We need to find more lithium and we need to develop these projects. It's estimated that we need tens of billions of dollars to meet this demand in investment. It has begun such a crisis that President Biden invoked the Defense Production Act back in the spring of 2022 to secure a supply of lithium and ultimately get it to market domestically. The Defense Production Act has only been invoked a handful of times in the last 50 years. So it's a very, very rare situation for this to happen. And it really is because there's a crisis. We do not have enough lithium. Most of it's produced in a handful of countries outside of the US and Canada, and we need to continue to secure a supply. Prime Minister Trudeau in Canada also has called this a crisis, and has now invested up to $2 billion in a critical mineral strategy to secure lithium in Canada and ultimately help develop these projects. So again, this is what's driving this market. And again, companies like ACME are certainly hoping to be able to supply lithium to the domestic market sometime down the road. I'm going to skip over a few slides. Certainly, please visit our website and our PowerPoint presentation. You'll be able to see a few things about lithium and its uses and the size of the market. As you well know, it's commonly used in batteries, lithium-ion batteries, and it's the core energy driver in a lot of uses today. What I will focus on is this slide here that talks about the global supply of lithium and where it's found. 95% of the lithium is found in only a handful or is produced in only a handful of countries around the world. China, Australia, Chile, and Argentina produce most of the lithium that supplies the market today. And yet we have reserves, we have resources, we have lithium in Canada and the US, but why are we such small producers? And this is the crisis that we're facing. There is lithium in North America. We just aren't in a situation right now where we can develop these projects and ultimately produce them. So if we were to rely on other countries for a supply of lithium as we build battery factories, new ones announced almost every week. Honda and LG announced a brand new battery factory being built in the US yesterday. How are we going to supply lithium if we don't have a domestic supply and we have to rely on this product coming from overseas? So it's very, very important that all stakeholders support the lithium industry and ultimately in the development of this resource in Canada and the United States. Lithium as a commodity, because of this crisis and the ultimate demand around the world, has had a huge spike in the core commodity price. The price of lithium is almost up 500% in the last year. Again, this is due to the increase in demand and really countries around the world scrambling to find lithium. And that includes the auto manufacturers, technology companies, large miners, and governments who absolutely want to secure a domestic supply. So that's why we've seen the price of lithium go up. And ultimately, if this price holds, it creates a great opportunity for companies in that they can be economically profitable with a variety of types of projects. So when I founded this company, I started to focus in on North America and the domestic crisis that we were facing for lithium. I first focused on Nevada, one of the best mining jurisdictions in the world. And in fact, there's only one place where lithium is produced in the US, and it's in Clayton Valley. This really is the epicenter of lithium development in the US. It's hard to believe that lithium is only produced in one place in the United States. And then lithium is produced in only one place in Canada, in southeastern Manitoba. And so my team focused on this area, and we ultimately acquired a couple projects in southeastern Manitoba. So we've got, again, one of the best portfolio of lithium projects that are out there today, and I'm going to share with you some of the information on these 4 projects. As you well know, Nevada is a hub of activity. It's a long history of mining. You can work there 12 months of the year. There's great infrastructure and there's great talent. And the communities there know about mining and resource development, whether it be wind farms or solar or extraction of precious minerals, and now a variety of commodities. In the southwestern portion of Nevada, about halfway between Reno and Las Vegas, is Clayton Valley. And again, this is where Albemarle, a New York Stock Exchange company with about a $30 billion market cap, they're one of the largest producers of lithium in the world. This is the only place where lithium has been produced. And we are fortunate that we have 2 projects that are near Albemarle. Schlumberger and Panasonic are there, as well as a number of other companies. And then a project that's very advanced is in northern Manitoba called Lithium Americas. So I'm going to focus on Albemarle's project and our project in Clayton Valley. You'll see here in this picture, this is Albemarle's Silver Peak project. They've been producing lithium here actually since 1966 and continue to produce from here. We were fortunate to acquire this project. We're a direct neighbor of Albemarle. We're contiguous to their project to the northwest. There's a number of other companies that claim they're neighbors and they're 30, 40 miles away, but we actually are their direct neighbor. And this is an ancient lake bed. Consider it salt flat. And underground are ancient rivers and aquifers that are flowing and full of brine, salt water. And again, this is a brine project, and Albemarle has been extracting lithium from brine for decades. Again, we're very excited about this project and recently announced in the last 3 weeks a lithium discovery. So this is a key milestone for ACME, and we're continuing to develop this project over the next few months. I'm going to tell you a little bit more about what we've done there. Back in the fall of 2021, we did 2 phases of geophysics, and geophysics are where we take readings of the ground, deep into the ground, to understand different rock types. Saltwater and aquifers have a different reading than other rock, and it really gives us an understanding of resistivity and understanding zones of where there's potential to drill into the ground. So this data gave us intelligence to ultimately commence our first drill program, which we did in June of 2022. We hired some top experts in drilling, as well as my team, who oversaw this first drill program. We were targeting a specific aquifer or group of aquifers that Albemarle has been producing from for decades. And there's some other companies in the region that also have drilled into this aquifer. We were fortunate that, in fact, we were able to make a discovery. The lithology, or the type of intervals of ground that we intercepted, were similar to all the historical documentation that we've seen of this ancient lake bed. And what we found is that lithium started to increase in concentration as we got deeper in the hole. In fact, we believe that there's possibilities of higher concentrations of lithium even deeper than the bottom of the hole that we drilled. So this is very exciting. These results came out a couple weeks ago. Again, this is our first discovery of a young company, and we are rapidly advancing our phase 2 of our program. So the next steps here is for us to drill what's called a rotary hole, and we do a pump test. We test how much water can flow per minute out of this aquifer, and that will allow us, based on grade, to determine how much lithium we have. We also will step out and drill 3 more exploration holes that are neighboring this first discovery hole. And if we combine that data and are successful with our existing data, we can ultimately calculate a resource. And so we're rapidly procuring equipment and our team and working on this phase 2, which is going to be coming up very shortly. We're estimating that we're going to be able to commence phase 2 of this program in calendar Q4 of 2022. So not that far away. Again, very exciting developments here and milestones for our company. And what I'm really hoping is that if we have success with phase 2, that we can ultimately come out with a resource, a lithium resource, in 2023, and then an economic assessment of that resource. So again, some key catalysts that we're hoping to work towards in the next 12 months. And again, a very exciting period for us in making discovery in Clayton Valley, and hopefully ultimately down the road in supplying lithium to the domestic market. Technology is changing the way we do things, and there's been some interesting technology developed in lithium being extracted from brine. Traditionally, lithium has been held in large football field like brine ponds, and now there's new technology where you can put a plant on a project and extract lithium from brine water. Panasonic and Schlumberger actually are to our east and are building a pilot plant to test this technology. We're watching them very closely. We believe we have very similar brine water and lithium to what they're going to be focusing on. And then there's a number of other companies worldwide that are well capitalized and are advancing their technology. We know them well. We're in discussions with them, and we ultimately believe DLE could be the way that we ultimately extract lithium. We do think there's opportunities with Albemarle as well, who's our neighbor. Certainly, we could build a small pipeline to them and ultimately process through them. So there's a number of ways that we can do that. But the benefits of DLE is that we use less water. We have a smaller footprint. The CapEx is smaller. There's some advantages to DLE. So again, we'll evaluate this as time goes on and hope to have updates for investors and shareholders in the near term. We're very fortunate in Nevada that we have 2 really interesting projects, not just Clayton Valley. If we go over the foothills across the mountains to the west of Clayton Valley, not that far away, you'll find Fish Lake Valley. It's the valley next door. There's a lot of activity happening here. And in fact, there's a world-class project that's owned by an Australian company. They're about $1.5 billion market cap company. They're in advanced stage. They're in feasibility right now. They have a lithium resource and are hoping to go into production in the next couple of years. And the big news coming out of Ioneer this summer is Ford has announced a major offtake agreement or supply agreement with Ioneer to supply Ford lithium. And it's not that far away. In fact, Ioneer's claim boundary extends all the way next to our Fish Lake boundary. So even though their resource is a few miles away, their claims are contiguous to ours to the east. And then Ioneer announced in the last couple of weeks a supply agreement with Toyota and Panasonic. So we're watching this project very closely. We expect it to receive the green light for permitting in the next year to 2 years and actually go into production. They're hoping it can go into production in the next couple of years. And again, we have a project next door. It doesn't necessarily mean that we have a world-class discovery and a resource, but certainly the address is very good. I doubled the footprint here, increased the size of our project. And what's interesting about Fish Lake Valley, even though we're in fairly early exploration, is we have lithium on surface. Our sampling has come back with a decent grade values on surface. We're moving quickly on this project now. I've got geophysics, again, readings underground happening this fall, and then I'll make a drilling decision later this fall. We hope to be drilling here sometime in early 2023, first half of 2023. Again, I'm making that decision here later in the year and hoping to make a major discovery here at Fish Lake. So again, two very interesting projects. You know, we're very fortunate to be next to some, world-class companies that have already made discoveries. And as I started to build this business, I started to focus in on an area of southeastern Manitoba. This is a province in central Canada. And what was most interesting to me is that there's only one place where lithium is produced in Canada, and it's at the Tanco mine in southeastern Manitoba. The Tanco mine was bought by a very large Chinese company called Sinomine a number of years ago. The Chinese are after core commodities all around the world and are buying up prospective opportunities. And so you understand why they may have bought the Tanco mine a number of years ago. It's currently in production. And in fact, lithium ore is being shipped by train across Canada, Vancouver, put on freighters, and then sent to China for processing. So we were fortunate. We spent time analyzing this region, and we ultimately focused in on the southern part of below the Tanco mine and then a number of miles north. So this is our Shatford Lake project. We're about a mile south of the Tanco mine. This is a large claim area. It's a hard rock project. So lithium is found in what are called pegmatites, and there's massive pegmatite fields throughout this region. To Tanco mine and its boundaries actually are contiguous to ours to the north. Tantalum Mining is their subsidiary, so we're not that far away from where existing production is. But it is early exploration. We've been very busy this summer. I've had boots on the ground, multiple crews, understanding structures here, sampling, mapping, and we've done some airborne geophysics. Again, readings of the ground to understand what's going on. So we've had a huge program this summer at Shatford Lake. And I've submitted permits for drilling. I submitted them a couple of weeks ago. We're working with the Manitoba government. We're hoping to have approvals on those permits in the next 30 to 45 days. And then we're right now finalizing our drill crew and planning to be drilling this project sometime in the fourth quarter of 2022. So very exciting time period here in Manitoba. A lot of activity happening. I think there's going to be multiple discoveries made in this southeastern region. Again, a long history of mining, and lithium certainly is in the area, obviously with a mine that's in production. And again, we hope to be making a discovery here sometime, over the next number of months as we begin our drill program in southeastern Manitoba. And then About 15 miles north, we have a second project in southeastern Manitoba. This is 15 miles north of the Tanko mine. It's our Cat Lake project. We've been working this in parallel to Shatford Lake. We've had boots on the ground here as well. We've done airborne geophysics, and our intention here is to drill this project in parallel to Shatford Lake. So again, two opportunities here in southeastern Manitoba. We're very excited about it. In fact, the opportunity here in this region is attracting a lot of attention. Australian miner MRL, an $8 billion company, and their lithium producer, has recently invested in another company in this region. So again, activity is picking up. We're very excited about what's happening in Manitoba, and we'll continue to update our investors and shareholders as we develop this project. A few key highlights here. As I mentioned, I've been in this business for close to 30 years. I've been involved in a number of M&A transactions. I, in fact, had my own money management firm for a number of years in the mid-2000s. But really, my core DNA and my passion is working with young companies and growing them and de-risking them and ultimately creating exit strategies for shareholders. So, again, we've got a great team. Yanis Titsos, one of my directors, was with BHP, one of the largest mining companies in the world, for 19 years. He's done over 300 transactions. Bill Firebend is a southwestern U.S. geologist, working mostly in Arizona and Nevada. He's worked on a number of lithium projects and has written technical reports. Matt Banta is a hydrogeologist. He understands water and water flow and in rocks, and he's been a key advisor to us on our brine project in Nevada. And then Paul McQuiggan has developed sampling techniques that are now used around the world. He's a veteran of industry in mining and geology, and he's been a key advisor in overseeing our Manitoba efforts. So these are just some of the highlights of some of the people that I have put together. I've got an assembly of experts and contractors who work for us. Even though we have a small team, we're able to do things in a nimble way, in an efficient way, and most importantly, deploy capital in a way that's efficient. So again, massive macro opportunity. We're in a revolution right now when it comes to the change. Obviously, we're in a green economy. It's shifting partly away from fossil fuels. I'm not saying that fossil fuels aren't needed. They absolutely are for many years, but there certainly is a green economy that's coming. So a huge opportunity. And we need to look at lithium as certainly as an investment opportunity. For us to have one project next to existing lithium production would be great. For us to have two projects next to lithium project would be very rare. And now for us to have three projects with our project next to Ioneer, which may go into production in the next couple of years, is unheard of. So I think we've got a world-class portfolio here. Again, just because we're a neighbor doesn't necessarily mean we're going to make a world-class discovery, but it certainly is giving us prospectivity and opportunity. And I think that, again, it makes me get up in the morning very excited to go to work today. We have 3 exploration programs ongoing at the same time, 2 in Nevada, and obviously our 2 projects in Manitoba over the next few months. We've made our initial discovery. We've got other targets ready to drill test. Our team is well-versed in these types of projects. And then what is really exciting to me is that we have some very good investors that have backed us. We're well capitalized. We've got just under $12 million cash in the bank. We're backed with companies called Lithium Royalty Corporation. They only invest in lithium. They're one of the top lithium investors in the world. They've invested in us twice now in 2 separate financings. Wartok Capital Advisors, a multi-billion-dollar fund management firm, has invested in us through their electrification and decarbonization fund, a green fund. And then we have a number of other mining funds that have invested in us. So they believe in our team, they like our projects, and they've continued to invest in us. So we're well capitalized. I have enough money to work on phase 2 in Clayton Valley, to expand our development in Fish Lake Valley, and to ultimately drill here in Manitoba. So we're well capitalized, and we continue to attract interest from multiple U.S. investment bankers and Canadian investment bankers that would like to provide us capital as we grow our business. So again, as previously mentioned, we trade on the CSE under ACME, and then we've recently been upgraded last week onto the OTCQX under ACLHF. Got 51 million shares out. Again, a pleasure to present today, and I'll be thrilled to answer a few questions if we have time. Again, feel free to reach out to me and ACME if you have any further questions. And hopefully we'll be able to supply lithium to the domestic market one day. That's certainly my vision and my goal as we grow our business.
Thank you, Steve. Great presentation, and what a thrilling industry to be in right now. So let's talk a little bit about that new lithium discoverer at Clayton Valley in Nevada. Can you tell us a little bit more details about that and what that means to ACME?
Sure. Well, as I mentioned, that lithium is found in brine, which is salt water. It's found in clay, and it's found in hard rocks. In this particular area of Clayton Valley actually, this is a picture here you'll see on the screen of it's a very flat, sort of ancient salt bed here. And this is where Albemarle has been producing lithium from since 1966. In fact, if you go to the edge of our property, there's a berm there, and you can throw a football over the berm onto their property. We're not that far away. And what's interesting about brine is there really are very few brine projects that are in active exploration and development in the United States. If you think about Utah and the Salt Lake there's activity happening there in looking for lithium, but the grade tends to be fairly low. General Motors has recently invested into a project at the Salton Sea, which you may have heard of, just south of Palm Springs. Again, an ancient salt lake that's been there, and General Motors has invested in that project. And then there's very few brine projects in the United States that are active today. Most of lithium that's produced from brine is found in what are called salars in Chile and Argentina and Bolivia, which is a very difficult country to work with based on their political climate. But most of the brine discoveries that have been made are in Chile and Argentina. So again, we're one of the only companies that have drilled a brine well in recent months in this region, and we're really pleased that we've made a discovery here. The key here is for us to advance it and get to a resource, and hopefully deliver on these key catalysts over the next number of months.
Wonderful. Now you have a summer program. Is that happening in Manitoba, correct?
It is. We've been very, very active in Manitoba. We've had 2 separate crews working back to back in Manitoba. And what I'm really proud of is, we are working side with First Nations there. Saugeen First Nation has territory rights in the region. Although Manitoba has a long history of mining and activity, we've been working in concert and really in partnership with the Saugeen First Nation. We employ quite a number of Saugeen as part of our crews. So, not only do we have to use best practices in what we do, and we have to understand and be sensitive to the environment, we need to ensure that the community is behind us. So again, I'm very proud of the activity that we've had in Manitoba. We've been able to employ quite a number of people, and really that's one of, my key milestones is to continue to grow the business and employ people in the United States and in Canada, and then obviously act with best practices in the most environmental way and high standards in how we work. So we've been very, very busy in Manitoba. It's been a busy season. We're continuing to analyze information as it comes to us day to day, and then ultimately working on permitting towards a drill program later in fourth quarter. So very excited about what's happening in Manitoba for us as well.
It all seems exciting. We have a question from Eric Summers. Eric wants to know about assets and therefore shareholder equity. They've really jumped recently. So was that due to a financing?
Good question, Eric. We actually had cash and a decent amount of cash heading into the spring. But with our multiple projects, I did want to get more aggressive. I wanted to spend more money. And my goal as CEO, and really I've been provided capital, and I want to put as much money into the ground as possible. We're a very lean company. We've got relatively low G&A. We don't have a massive team, and my goal here is to attract capital and put it in the ground. And so I started talking to Lithium Royalty Corporation, one of our key investors, as well as Warsaw Capital and a couple other mining funds. And this is after war had broken out. The markets were getting volatile, and I said to them, listen, I'd like to raise a little more money here. I think I'd like to expand our program at Fish Lake. I'd like to expand our program in Manitoba. I said, if we make a discovery in Clayton Valley, which we now have done, I'm going to need to expand our program there. I'd like to add a little more capital. And they all agreed. Every single one of the institutional investors that I talked to agreed to provide me more capital. So I was fortunate in one of the toughest markets. I closed actually more money than I'd asked for from my institutional investors, and they provided me more capital this past late spring in a very, very difficult time when the market was going sideways. So, I'm really proud of the fact that we were able to do that. And what it's given us is a significant amount of capital that we can now deploy into our projects and hopefully meet milestones. So that's why you've seen a jump in our balance sheet. And again, we've been able to attract capital from key investors. And really, that's my goal here as we advance this business, is to continue to attract capital from people that are patient, that look for the midterm in the sense of their time horizon, and want to grow with us as we build this business.
Great. George Garza asks, how long will your current cash position take you towards production? And how much more do you think you're going to have to raise?
These types of projects are multi-phase projects. Obviously, the first step is exploration. You go into discovery. You then continue to advance your project into an initial resource calculation. If that discovery is of decent size, then you go into what's called a PEA, a preliminary economic assessment, to understand if, based on the commodity price, based on CapEx in expanding and developing the mine, has profitability. So the first step is for us to actually expand our discovery, move into an initial resource calculation, move into a preliminary economic assessment, and then you go into what's called pre-feasibility, and then feasibility, and then you go through permitting, ultimately to develop yourself into a mine. So in many cases, this can take quite a number of years. What we see in some of our peer group that have gone through this process, as they get through these various milestones and stages, they've seen their valuation continue to increase in size. There are companies out there that are more advanced than us that have multi-$100 million market caps, or even multi-billion dollar market caps as they grow their business. So that is the potential as we grow each of these phases. So our capital right now, we have enough capital to meet all of our exploration plans here through the remainder of 2022 and into 2023. I can stretch that capital out for some time. We can slow down and speed up depending upon availability of crews and permitting our programs. But based on success over the next number of months, I'm hoping, and because I have a lot of interest in our company right now from investment banks, I'm hoping to raise a significant institutional financing sometime in 2023 of major size. And that's really my goal here, is to meet some milestones and catalysts over the next 6 months, and then raise significant capital that'll help develop all of our projects. I'm also looking to joint venture. I have a number of companies, larger companies and small, that are interested in doing due diligence on our projects right now. Another way is to, as I say, use other people's money. And so joint venturing on these projects with technology companies, auto manufacturers, large mining companies, large institutions is something certainly that we could do in allowing us to grow our business with other people's capital. So again, a number of options for us. The key here for us is for me to spend some of our existing capital. I like to raise money when I have money. I don't want to be running on fumes. So again, I'll be looking to raise additional capital probably in the early stages of 2023.
Fantastic. Bart Higgins asks, after your pump test, how long do you think it'll take to determine proven reserves? And from there, how much time to production?
Yeah, you start with actually what's called a resource calculation. Reserves are a later level of analysis that takes more detail and more information. So this pump test will allow us to understand water flow, and obviously with grade, it'll give us some really strong indications of a potential resource. But the exploration holes that we'll be drilling in parallel to the pump test, we'll be doing that in the same program. those exploration holes allow us to understand the size of the resource in our area. You can triangulate those exploration holes, assuming we, again, make discoveries there too, which we believe we will. Time will tell on that, but we can triangulate those holes with the pump test, and ultimately we'll be able to create a 3D model and define the resource in how big that aquifer might be, and ultimately how fast we can get the brine out. And then we calculate that with grade, and it gives us, how many tons of lithium we potentially may have. So again, my goal here is get to a resource calculation sometime in the first half of 2023. There would be further work that we would need to do to get to a preliminary economic assessment, which again, my goal would be to do that sometime later in 2023. And then obviously then we'd move into pre-feasibility, feasibility, and ultimately in production. So it'd be a number of years before we're in production. But this is the time frame on these projects. No different than the biotech industry. When you're discovering a new drug, there's phases you go through, and things take time. When you're developing software, it takes time to go through beta 1, beta 2, and so forth. So again, the goal here is for you to come along with us over the next few years. Hopefully we grow our business and hopefully grow our market cap as well, and have a return for our shareholders as we go.
Great. Follow-up question from Darren Fox. When you are in production, who are your target customers?
Well, interesting enough, and I've never seen this in my career before. I'm seeing large mining companies, technology companies, auto manufacturers, leading companies around the world contact smaller companies at an earlier stage in understanding the supply chain and where they're at in their lithium process of development and ultimately in production. Many of the auto manufacturers, for example, are already looking out to 2030 and even 2035 as they forecast where they're going to be in their hybrid and EV divisions. Obviously California has come in with new news recently that they will no longer sell gasoline cars after 2035. So Ford's putting $20 billion into their EV division. GM is saying they're going to have 50% of their vehicles are going to be EV by a certain date. So they're looking out 10 years from now as to where they're going to get lithium from. Most definitely, they already are sourcing contracts 5 years from now. So what's interesting is, and I've never seen this in my career with a commodity, and this is why lithium is so special and is why it's such a crisis, is I'm seeing larger companies reaching out to us, wanting an update as to where we are in development and what are our plans ultimately to go into production down the road. So we're being watched by companies from around the world. It's an exciting time. And again, there's no guarantee that we're going to sign an offtake or a supply agreement with any of these companies. We actually have to expand our exploration and ultimately get to a resource. There's a number of things we need to do first, but it is exciting to think that there are quite a number of larger companies that are actively pursuing companies around the world like ACME Lithium.
Last question from Fram Garbs. Fram, being in mining for 30 years, what have you mined previously?
So I've been involved in a number of commodities around the world. I've been involved in alternative energy, hydro project that was ultimately bought by an energy company. I was involved in geothermal projects actually in Nevada that was bought by a private equity firm. An Argentina silver polymetallic company that was bought by a Chilean producer. I was involved in an oil and gas project in Asia that was ultimately bought by a NASDAQ company. I was involved in a copper gold project in the Western states that now is run by Rio Tinto Kennecott, a very large company. So I've been active around the world. These are just a few of the projects I've been involved with. This is my first lithium project, but I've been an investor in lithium. I invested very early on in a company called Western Lithium about 10 years ago that now is actually Lithium Americas, a multi-billion-dollar company. I was an early investor in Western Lithium in a predecessor company about 10 years ago, and I've invested in lithium in Argentina over the last 10 years. So I understand the commodity. I understand how to grow this type of business and de-risk it. And at the end of the day, it's really about what's under the earth. That's out of my control. We can do the best we can with technology and smart people, but at the end of the day, it's what's under the earth that's going to be the true test. And that's really the risk that we're taking here. These are high-risk projects. There's no guarantee here that we're going to have an economic resource, but certainly we're doing our best to actively pursue that, and having a multi-project portfolio certainly helps in ensuring and lowering the risk for our shareholders, is that we have multiple opportunities to hopefully develop a world-class project.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much for joining us again, Steve. Please come back in the future and give us some more updates.
Great. Thanks, Anna, for your time. And thanks, everybody, for joining this live call today. And feel free to reach out if you like to answer any further questions. Enjoy the day.
Perfect. All right. Thank you, Steve. Okay, everyone, stay with us. We'll be back in about 5 minutes with our next presenter.